Okay, Michael. So I know we're a bit late to this, but I think we have to talk about it. The Minions movie has caused havoc for theatre owners. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this, but obviously it's quite funny. The movie premiere of Minions created a stir due to TikTok trend called Gentle Minions, a call for moviegoers to attend the film in formal wear and get rambunctious whenever the Minions appeared on screen. You've heard of this, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen the hype.
There's a problem though, because the trend, of course, led to dozens of teens dressed in formal wear, creating disturbances at theatres across the UK. One movie theatre refunded more than $1,300 worth of tickets in one day because of all the noise that was caused. And so basically, Odeon have to restrict access to the Minions movie, in the UK because of it. So
wow. So what you're telling me, I just want to make sure that I've got this correct. You're telling me that an internet trend has led to young people being obnoxious?
Yeah, I know, but it's about the Minions though.
Yeah. It's it's movies starting with M, clearly. The Minions, Morbius, and the Hunger Games Mockingjay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating the 60-year anniversary of the, some might say, classic movie To Kill a Mockingbird. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about the movie To Kill a Mockingbird?
Yes, I will, Michael. Firstly, though, I often as a kid always found the title To Kill a Mockingbird rather an obscure title. Kind of like the novel version of The Phantom Menace, If you get what I mean by that. But yeah,
because it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, and obviously there's that classic joke in The Simpsons about killing mockingbirds. Yeah, which is of course kind of a layup for a joke, but you know what? It's still funny. But anyway, we're doing To Kill a Mockingbird, like you said, Michael, because of its 60-year anniversary, and we are doing it around this time in the middle of the summer because I know a lot of the movie is based in the summer, and it just it seems hot there in good old Macomb, Alabama in the summer. And I tell you what, it was hot today. So you never want to do hot movies in the winter, do you? It just doesn't work, right?
No, exactly. Yeah, it wouldn't have felt appropriate. And yes. Watching this movie, I did feel like when I was watching this movie, like I was in the sweltering southern heat.
Yes, the sweltering southern heat indeed. To Kill a Mockingbird, again, it's its 60-year anniversary because it's a 1962 American drama film directed by Robert Mulligan. The screenplay is by Horton Foote. It's based on Harper Lee's. These names are just very weird. Horton Foote. It's based on Harper Lee's 1960 Pulitzer Prize-winning novel of the same name. And we are also doing To Kill a Mockingbird right now because the novel was released on July the 11th, 1960, which is now, basically.
Yes,
it's like a day away. That's why we're doing it. But, of course, the movie was not released in the middle of the summer, which we'll get to that. But, we're close enough, to its 60th anniversary. So, Michael, the film stars Gregory Peck, Mary Badham, Philip Alford, John Megna, Ruth White, Paul Fix, Brock Peters, and Frank Overton.
Did you just say Frank Ocean?
I said Frank Overton. The creator.
It's never Frank Ocean.
The creator of those famous windows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the release date was December the 25th. 1962, so not summer. Indeed, it was released on Christmas Day in 1962, but you know what? A hell of a lot of movies are always released around Christmas, so I thought I'd shove this movie to where the book was released in the middle of summer.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a Christmas movie.
It is not a Christmas movie, no, I agree, yes. So, Michael, can you guess what the budget was for To Kill a Mockingbird?
Well, no. I mean, the thing is, so, logically, I would think there was nothing in this film that would have required, special effects by the standards of the time.
Oh, really?
So that counts against it, yeah, in terms of, money. Now, obviously, Gregory Peck, I know is famous and had been in a few kind of substantial films even before this one. So that would obviously potentially, for all I know, he might have been a box office, somebody who commanded quite a large salary. But it's all moot because I don't really know anything about what the inflation would have been like. Also,
can you not remember Lolita?
Oh, you know what? I wish I could remember. Okay, so Lolita, was it 3 million for Lolita?
Okay.
Am I crazy?
I mean, it was, I don't know, but...
Yeah, I think it was around that.
Yeah. That should give you a good reference, so have a guess.
Yeah, I was thinking low millions, so let's go for 2.5 million.
The budget was 2 million. So once you
Well
think
done,
about
mate.
it for 5 seconds. Okay, how about the box office?
Well, again, like I don't really know. I mean, I assume this film would have been a big hit. In fact, I know Walt Disney saw it. So I think this film made like a lot. But obviously, how much is a lot? I think it would not be unrealistic to imagine like maybe 10 times its money back, which would be 20 million. That feels like a safe bet.
Well,
but I mean, it could have been more, it could have been less, but 20 million.
So Lolita, I remember, was 9.5.
Okay, yeah.
I remember that because it got it grossed more than the 1997 version.
Yes.
The 1962 version, which is hilarious. But the box office for To Kill a Mockingbird was not 20 million, but it was more than Lolita. It was 13.1. So yeah, you don't get a mark against you for going less than half. But yeah, again, I thought you could have used your intuition a bit to get a bit closer. But again, it's a fine guess. It's a decent guess. Anyway, Michael, what about whether we like this movie? Did you like To Kill a Mockingbird?
This movie, it was good. It was like, I guess I'd say it was kind of like an easy watch in that like it wasn't particularly,
unless you're black.
Yeah, yeah. But like, I mean, the thing is, it kind of like it's obviously like a classic movie, and I feel like that just kind of gives it a certain degree of like charm. I guess like I think that like
there's a lot of charm in this movie.
Yeah, I think that charm really adds something to it. Just the charm of it. That old Gregory Peck, Atticus Finch. He sure is a real dandy chap. Now, the things I would say count against this film is, I guess, one for me.
Let's not go so deep into it.
Yeah, I'm not going to go super deep. Okay, I'm just saying the main thing that counts against it for me then is actually I think that the characters are pretty static. Like, there's not really any development. Like the film, in terms of like, obviously in the plot stuff happens, but I was kind of thinking, this isn't really like affecting anything in terms of like where the characters are going, and that was what made me feel bored at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that really later on, but I think overall this movie, it's a fine movie. Like you say, it's a classic. It's got bucket loads of charm, and it's got an important message within it, of course. But overall, yeah, it's just not that deep. It's just not that amazing. It's just fine. It's good. Yeah, like it. The novel, of course, is incredibly famous, more so than the movie. And the movie probably couldn't live up to the the novel stature, and it does a pretty good job in some instances, but it's not that amazing. Certainly, it is probably a classic because of the fact that it is based off a one of the best selling books in fucking history. To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah.
Also, in terms of like pacing, you can tell this was like based on a book.
Yes,
which I don't know when we get
which
into that.
We'll get into that throughout the review. But anyway, how many nitpicks do you have?
I've got one, and it's a joke one.
Yeah, I've got two, so I'll go first. And a nitpick. So my first nitpick, Atticus makes the Cunningham boy make a fool of himself by putting syrup all over his food. Atticus sees him do it, and he can tell he's going to do it. And if I was Atticus, I'd just be like, you don't want to do that, lad. The syrup doesn't, don't put syrup.
It'll probably be a bit too sweet.
Yeah, don't put syrup on your roast beef, son. Just,
yeah.
But he just lets him do it. And I was like... Well, like obviously Scout makes fun of him and Scout's wrong for that, but why doesn't Atticus like step in and say, hey, that's not, just be helpful. It doesn't need to be like condescending.
He'd be like, see, if I were him, like, this is what you got to do to be really polite. You like say like, are you sure? And then you say something else, like, are you sure you wouldn't want some gravy? Because then it's like, rather than like being like,
no, that sounds like you're making a joke out of him. Like,
I don't know. If I feel like if Atticus Finch would have said it, it wouldn't have sounded. See, I feel like because I'm a very jovial person, it sounded like a joke. But I feel like the way he would have sounded like, see, here, son, are you sure you wouldn't like some gravy instead?
Okay, yeah, saying it like that would maybe work a bit better. Okay. But anyway, so Atticus just... I don't know what he was thinking when he saw it. Like, oh yeah, let's let him do that. Fine. So my next nitpick is, Michael, the trial. The fucking trial. It took what, 3 hours to complete? Now, I thought these things normally take a lot longer, right?
Actually, it did seem like I was a bit confused by that as well, because at first I was like thinking this was just closing statements, and I was thinking like, because at first I was going to give a nitpick of like, are they really saying all of this stuff in closing statements? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, I don't think this even is closing statements. I think this is like, like you said, the whole trial.
This
and I was
is
like, it is,
the whole trial, which takes place in 3 hours, and 2 of those hours are jury deliberation. It's just, I mean, trials maybe back in the day, they were very quick. But it just seems to me like, it took a very short amount of time, even though, it was a...
pretty big trial.
Yeah, pretty big trial, pretty big deal. So, Michael, what's yours?
Yeah, mine is that he goes to all of that effort and he doesn't even get invited to the cookout with the black family at the end. So if you've seen this film called A Time to Kill, you'll know that it's all worthwhile because at the end, Matthew McConaughey gets invited to the cookout with Samuel L. Jackson's family at the end. And obviously that is the peak kind of white liberal fantasy. And I just feel really sorry for Atticus Finch that he didn't get that.
Yeah, no, he didn't get. Damn it! Do you think they had cookouts back then? I mean,
I don't know. Well, they were very poor, obviously, not because they were black, although that might have had something to do with it, but mostly because of the Great Depression. And
yeah,
but like maybe they could have had like some roadkill cookout.
Okay.
Like Dad shot a raccoon.
Well, the Cunningham kid before he said he's been
eating squirrels. Yeah,
squirrels recently. So yeah, maybe the Atticus was rather happy to avoid the cookout then.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so this is my lip pick, Michael. So this is a movie, To Kill a Mockingbird, about a book that I read in school. You see, many people our age, Michael, will have read another book that contains a story
of Mice and Men.
Yeah, about a mentally challenged man, which is, of course, Of Mice and Men by Steinbeck. I can't remember his first name, but I know that's his last name.
Isn't it just Robert Steinbeck?
I thought Sounds it was right. Like George.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I'll find out.
Okay. Well, you know what?
John.
All right. Well, I think
you were closer, to be fair.
I think I was closer. Anyway, so in English literature, all of us at school, and I'm sure around the country, we would have done, of people who are our age, of course, we would have done a module on American classic fiction or something. That was probably the module, and I think the Tories have since got rid of that module. But yeah,
damn Tories.
I know, those were the days, right? Kids today won't know about Of Mice and Men, Lenny and his strong hands.
Yeah.
And I only know that through osmosis, like talking to other kids. They I don't know. Some didn't really like that that book. I could tell they didn't really like Lenny. But anyway, like I said, a lot of kids our age did Of Mice and Men. Did you, Michael?
Well, here's the thing, Luke. Famously, I am very angry about the fact that our stupid English literature teacher gave us a entirely obscure novel that nobody's heard of, meaning we actually didn't really gain any greater knowledge of the Western canon, because we read this book called Heroes, which was about some guy who returns back from World War II to find out that his personal childhood hero was actually a rapist and resolves to go off on a quest of revenge.
Okay. Is that an American novel?
It is an American novel. So
were you the only people in your school to read that?
I'm pretty sure we were. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that our teacher just had a just personal vendetta against the idea of us getting to read a classic book.
What were the other kids?
They were reading like Of Mice and Men and you know Grapes of Wrath and Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, so some of them did read To Kill a Mockingbird.
I'm pretty sure some did read To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay, because I did. I was the only set to read A Kill a Mockingbird. Which set was that, Michael? Let me hear you say it.
The A set.
Well,
did you have it by numbers?
Yeah, numbers, yeah.
Okay, we had it by letters.
Oh, right, no, set 1 sounds a lot better than set A. Set 1, number 1, all of that. But
it makes it sound like you've got a while to go in a tennis match, though.
Great, that's really funny. But yeah, but set 1, we got the good stuff. This is literally also the last fiction book I have read, I think.
Oh god, I actually have no idea what the last fiction book I read was. Now you mention it, but yeah.
Literally, unless you count the 2019 Labour Manifesto.
The loony left.
This is the last fiction book I read 10 years ago, and for the last, I don't know, I haven't been asked this question a lot, but whenever someone asks me, "Oh, what's your favourite book?" I would say, "Oh yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird." Yeah, because that's the only one I've read. But yeah, there is some nostalgia, like reminiscing about this, reading it, because obviously in our set we read it 10 years ago, year 11, just some nostalgia for that, Michael, if you can appreciate that.
That is good.
Great.
Yeah, university really killed the reading of fiction books.
Oh yeah,
with all this academic nonsense.
Obviously, I read a ton of non-fiction. Well, some of them, like the Communist Manifesto, might not qualify.
The loony left. I love making fun of the loony left.
Oh god, yeah, but I didn't think I ever read the what's Das Kapital? That's Marx's other one.
Das Kapital is like the long one that's actually all theoretical.
Yeah.
So I actually have read the Communist Manifesto because it is. I think it's only like 80 pages. It's very kind of manageable in length. Well, unlike Das Kapital, which I think is like 1,000 pages.
Yeah. So
It's only one extreme or the other.
Yes. So anyway, I have it was fun just watching this movie. Just like, oh yeah, I remember that from the book, and oh yeah, I remember that one when life was so much simpler. Reading about fucking Boo Radley and all of that. But anyway, so let's get on to the plot of this movie, Michael. So Scout, Finch, Six, and her older brother Jem live in sleepy Macomb, Alabama, spending much of their time with their friend Bill and spying on their reclusive and mysterious neighbour Boo Radley. When Atticus, their widowed father and respected lawyer, defends a black man named Tom Robinson against fabricated rape charges. The trial and tangent events expose the children to evils of racism and stereotyping. So yeah, it is a message movie at the end of the day, Michael. You know, aims to teach people about, you know, being more tolerant. I mean, particularly kids, of course. That's who it's really aimed at. Maybe like young adults. I don't know. Like, you know, when I was reading it, you know, around that age, being a teenager, and just exposing.
It was a real crash.
Yes, just exposing how, you know, be tolerant of others, and racism is bad, right?
Yeah, and we agree.
We agree with that message. We do, and of course we'll get into the message and how it's not really that deep, but you know, it's a book from the perspective of a 6-year-old kid, so that's to be expected. But anyway, so the film is narrated by the adult Jean. I say Jean because of Jean-Luc Picard. You know.
Ah, yes.
What is it actually? Jean.
Yeah, I guess it would be Jean, seeing as it's a woman.
Jean Louise Scout Finch. So young Scout and her preteen older brother, Jem, live in the fictional town of Macomb, Alabama, during the early 1930s. Despite the family's modest means, the children enjoy a happy childhood, cared for by their widowed father, Atticus Finch. So yeah, that's another key aspect, isn't it? It's a tale of childhood, isn't it, Michael? Yeah.
This feels like, I mean, that is something else which makes it feel kind of old, because I feel like they used to like having just these films, and obviously I guess by extension probably most of the time books, about just like kids doing their thing. Like it feels like back in the, you know, I guess from like the 1930s to the 1950s, kids were just out and about all the time. You just couldn't stop them going out there playing stickball, rolling each other around in tires, going out into the woods. Until video games came along. So yeah, that's also a nostalgic aspect of the story.
Don't mock people who, you know, don't have dads. That's why we never would do that to Dylan. Be thoughtful of other people's feelings, you know. Mr. Cunningham, you know, may be poor, but again, it's not nice to bring attention to it. Dill may not have a dad, but not everyone is born in ideal circumstances. You have to understand that people come from all different backgrounds. You know, you got to be respectful. I think there's a word for like having this mentality. I believe it's woke.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah.
Which is, to me, well, it started off as the essential meaning of the word, and then has now morphed into something differently because people...
I also thought it was weird how Atticus said that we shouldn't say Christmas because it might offend the Muslims.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like, that's the essential message, or certainly at the start of the movie. Then we of course get the introduction of Boo Radley, and who, along with Tom Robinson, is one of the central characters that help, you know, the kids learn about, I guess, prejudice and, you know, understanding and tolerance, and all of that. On Boo Radley, I guess, is this is why you should be tolerant, because you don't know about people unless, you know, you actually do know them, and obviously not doing that can kind of lead to what happened with Tom Robinson, even though it's a lot more complicated than that, I guess, would be the comparison. But anyway, do you like the description that Jem gives about Boo Radley? Do you remember that? I mean, I can't.
I can't remember the exact words.
Yeah. So, but you know, since we were reading the book in school, I may or may not have remembered one of the kids at my school describe one of the mentally challenged students that way in a southern accent. If you can imagine such a thing.
Oh wow, that's quite funny.
Is it? Is it quite funny?
Well, that reminds me of how my aforementioned English literature teacher, she read a poem by Benjamin Zephaniah, who of course is Jamaican, and she decided to do the accent for the authenticity, which meant we got a Scottish, like very thick Scottish accent, middle-aged woman doing a fake like Jamaican accent, and
That's
it was
great.
The singular best moment of my entire school.
I love that. That's great. Oh damn. Thank God for those teachers, man. Thank God.
I know,
yeah. But yeah, basically, they're kind of tormenting Boo, or it appears to be the case, and it's because of stories like the one Dill's aunt Stephanie tells about B. Radley, and but I had to point this out, like Dill when when his aunt Stephanie like taps him on the back and saying, "What are you doing?" Dill's line is so good when he says, "My God, Aunt Stephanie, you almost gave me a heart attack."
I like some of just like the times when people sounded like just like really old fashioned. That was some of the best stuff.
Yeah, like a 7-year-old.
Golly gee, I can't believe that.
Yeah, a 7-year-old kid saying that. Yeah. Just again at the start of the movie, just a lot of the kids running around doing stuff. That was how it was before. Before kids got their damn video games.
Yeah,
that's what it was like before. And
just we didn't have video games. We just tormented the local mentally handicapped person back in the more wholesome times.
Yeah, those were the days. Yeah, exactly. No, but that is true. I mean, what else would there be to do? In fucking Macomb, apart from torment the local mentally challenged man in his dark, scary house. But anyway, so that's basically the first 30 minutes of the movie, and then establishing everything and Macomb, and then we get into the actual story, which centers around, of course, Bob Ewell accusing Tom Robinson, a black man, of raping his daughter, when of course that didn't happen. But anyway, Bob Ewell, Michael, his characterization in this movie is kind of interesting because he, of course, you could say, I mean, he's white trash. Obviously, that's the phrase. But also, he's a Southern caricature, perhaps. Yeah, because you can be white trash and not like racist and just spit it at people and be drunk all the time.
Yeah,
but
and also like I see. I kind of thought there was maybe like an implication of incest.
No,
as well.
No,
I'm not sure. Okay,
so.
I wasn't sure if it was that. Like, because I mean, obviously, it's strongly implied that he was the one who beat up his daughter.
Yeah, that's not
I mean, like that's basically said. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I know. But it's just I don't know. Just because like his daughter was beaten up in the context of being had sex with, or was the. It's fine. I just like for a minute I was thinking like, oh, is that like implied incest? But it wasn't. Yeah, I agree.
Well,
with you. It wasn't really said.
Is that what you were thinking, eh? Okay.
Well, I was only thinking it because he was a Southerner.
Okay.
I mean, he's from like Alabama, right?
Yeah.
But that's literally.
Oh yeah, it's
the incest state.
It is the incest state. Like in the sequel, Scout and Jim get married.
Yes.
Yeah, Scout and Jim get married in the sequel. That's why Harper Lee didn't want to release it. No, she did. The sequel came out after she died. I think it was like 2014.
Yeah, it was called To Kill a Mockingbird 2: The Rise of Gru, in a shocking moment of prescience.
To kill 2 Mockingbird.
That is really fun. It's like kill Mockingbirder.
Yeah, God, Too Fast, Too Furious. What a great movie. Anyway, so obviously, so obviously, B. Radley, is explored, but then we get onto, like I said, Bob Ewell. James Anderson and Colin Wilcox said the Southern bigots are almost caricatures. That's what he said. And the thing is, that's true. It's kind of is the worst caricature other than a Southern bigot in America. But I think that's fine because these characteristics of Bob Ewell, I think a lot of people in the South in the 1920s or 30s would have had them.
It's like they say, stereotypes exist for a reason.
Yes, maybe not as bad as him, like all rolled into one. But certainly, those characteristics do exist. And the thing is, normally in this movie, of course, he's the enemy, he's the bad guy, you're meant to root against him. But the issue with having like caricatures as your enemy, normally in these kind of movies, is that they lose and you're meant to feel really good about them losing. It's like a huge victorious moment when like, oh, Bob Ewell, he doesn't get his way, and they find Tom Robinson innocent. But of course they find Tom Robinson guilty. So the fact that he's just such a piece of shit shows that the public, or the white public in Alabama, will still trust and back this awful white trash over this like innocent black guy, like the worst possible white person. They'll still go for his story compared to the black guys. So that's why I'm fine with him being like a caricature.
I would agree. I mean, so
it serves a purpose, Michael.
Yes,
beyond just I hate that guy.
Yeah. I mean, the only I think limitation to it, again, kind of as already hinted at, is that like it does add to the idea of the characters in general, I guess, being quite static. Like obviously, and with the villain, that's certainly far more excusable because just like, well, a lot of the time you can excuse a villain being a villain and then just continuing to be a villain throughout the rest of the film. But yeah, it just means obviously that's an example where there's not really much complexity. But yeah, I agree with you. It does serve a purpose, and I think that's fine. That he's basically a dickhead.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. And yeah, the white public will trust a dickhead over, this black guy, yeah. But anyway, so the Mockingbird analogy, Michael, get on to that. So To Kill a Mockingbird is a sin. That's why I often wondered, like, while reading the book, because I remember we started reading the book, and I was like, when are they going to get onto the Mockingbird part?
When are we going to get to the fireworks factory?
But so this is it. So yeah, it's basically, you don't harass people who've done nothing wrong in their lives, I guess. And that applies to Tom Robinson and Boo Radley. And yeah, another teaching moment from Atticus. They're they're on a swing outside, aren't they? Yeah. And
Yes.
Scout has a child's innocence, and that leads her to not understand things about the world, in terms of why people are different to her. And yeah, basically that is one of the lessons Atticus teaches her, not to kill a mockingbird. And the other crucial one, which I shall get from Wikipedia, you don't know about a person's life until you walk in their shoes or something. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
You never really
yeah.
You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside of his skin and walk around in it.
Yes. I remember that because, like, it's a really weird reason to remember something, but I remember, like, that one time in the Oscars when they do their kind of, like, looking back at, like, films, they do little kind of Oscar roll things.
Yeah.
That's one of the clips that I remember they used.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Again, yeah, Scout is just being taught by Atticus all of this stuff, and that leads us on to Gregory Peck as Atticus. So, yeah, he's such a commanding, like, calm figure, isn't he, Atticus, in this movie, among other things. I love that the line he gives when he's asked by the, I think it's the judge, if he wants to defend Tom Robinson, and he says,
Yes.
"I'll take the case," like that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, what a great line. Yeah, and I guess Atticus as a character is an example of a very positive father figure, Michael. Among other things, we'll get onto that. But firstly, the positive father figure. He has these skills, with a gun, but he doesn't use those skills, does he? Jem has never heard Atticus.
Yeah, he's not a good guy with a gun. He's not with a gun at all.
Yeah. Well, I guess. No, I think the NRA would like Atticus because it's like, hey, he shoots, he's good with guns, but he doesn't use them too often. That's if every American was like Atticus and bought all these guns but just didn't use them, we'd all get along.
That's true.
Yeah, that's what they want, really, isn't it? But anyway, he wants to be a different kind of role model to children. He won't. What does he say at the start of the movie? He doesn't want to play in the football game.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to shoot.
They might get hurt.
Yeah, doesn't want to shoot guns. Wants to be a different kind of role model to what the ideal version of masculinity that Jem, of course, like in his head, like wants to be, basically. He doesn't want to lead the kids down that path. He wants to be a different type of role model, which is clear. And he really doesn't have any faults at all, does he?
Yeah, he doesn't.
He is one of the most morally perfect characters in literature and film history. He solves his arguments with words, Michael, not violence. We talked about, he wants to be a different kind of role model to Jem, and when he shoots that dog, Michael, that rabid dog, what's that a metaphor for as well?
It's a metaphor for him shooting the evil that lurks within him.
I don't think so.
I'm not entirely sure what it is actually a metaphor for. It's
a metaphor for racism.
Okay, so yeah, the dog is racism.
Yeah, I thought that would be pretty obvious, Michael.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
We made that connection in high school, Michael.
The dog. Well, maybe it's more clear in the book. I would like to say.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I swear. Obviously that would make sense. The dog's racism.
Yeah, that's one of the things I learned about in school. Like the teacher explaining to us what a metaphor is. Yeah,
because black people are often scared of dogs. Yeah.
I don't think that works really, but that's one of the things I remember going over at school. The dog symbolizes racism, and Atticus is shooting the dog, so he's killing racism. That's what he's trying to do. So basic message from Atticus is save the mockingbirds and kill the dogs. That's what he's trying to teach his children. Do you want to say children like Atticus does, Michael?
I feel like I'm gonna before you see. So I'm just trying to say something to get into his voice. So well, you never understand until you see children. Children. It's kind of like it's slower. Children.
Well, it's like
children.
Children, like that.
Children. There you go.
Copernicus, you take the children.
You take the children. Children, yeah.
Take the children inside. Yeah.
Take the children inside.
Great. So I'm glad we spent like 30 seconds on that.
That was good.
So let's talk about Peck's performance, Michael, specifically as Atticus Finch. So, I was just going to say, it became synonymous with the role and the character of Atticus Finch. He's such a, commanding, it's a big role to fill. You read the book and you're like, wow, Atticus, he's incredible. And so to step into that role, you're going to have to be pretty damn good. And yeah, it is kind of like, I'm going to use this comparison, like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine,
Yes, identical.
It's like, oh, well, now when you picture Wolverine, you picture him as Hugh Jackman. He's just, and you picture Atticus Finch, you picture Gregory Peck. That's him. There's no other version, of Atticus Finch which works. It is Gregory Peck. And that's why they'll never make another Wolverine prophecy.
By the way, Gregory Peck was also back in, I believe, the late 40s in a film called Gentleman's Agreement, where he agrees to pretend to be a Jew in order to get. He's playing a journal. He is a journalist, and he realizes there's a rise in anti-Semitic sentiment in American society, so he decides to. Well, yeah, I don't know, yeah. But it's kind of funny because it's obviously set in the late 1940s, but for some reason they never mention the Holocaust. I don't know. It's almost like it feels weird because it's almost like a film set in the modern day because they're talking about anti-Semitism, but they're not talking about the actual literal genocidal extermination of the Jews. They're just talking about a kind of vague anti-Semitic sentiment. But anyway, so he decides to pose as a Jew in order to suss out what's going on. So there we go. The point is, he's been in another film about racism.
Okay, that's good. But yeah, so this is interesting you said that, Michael, because producer Alan Pakula said, I must say the man and the character he played were not unalike. So, he's a very noble man, apparently, Gregory Peck. Peck later said in an interview that he was drawn to the role because the book reminded him of growing up in La Jolla, California, which doesn't seem like Macomb, Alabama, but apparently it was. And he also said, hardly a day passes that I don't think how lucky I was to be cast in that film, he said in an interview in 1997. And obviously, people around the world, love Gregory Peck for that. That's what his most famous role, apart from his other role in Family Guy. Michael, do you remember this?
Oh my God, he was in Family Guy?
Yeah, he was. Let's play the clip.
Are we there yet? It's crowded back here. Stop touching me. Your leg is rubbing up against mine.
So help me, I'll slap you.
I'm pouring over. Stop breathing on the window. You idiot. That's condensation. It's on the outside. That's it. I will come back there, and so help me God, I will hit you with my ring hand.
There we go.
Yeah, that's in I see that line. I will hit you with my ring hand. I've repeated before.
Yes. Anyway, so I don't know what really that was for, but Family Guy, they really nailed Gregory Peck there. But anyway, he won the Academy Award, of course, Michael,
for his role in Family Guy.
For his role in Family Guy, yes, that was the case. No, of course he won it for his role in To Kill a Mockingbird. And what was interesting is that film critic Pauline Kael claimed that when Gregory Peck received the Academy Award for Best Actor, there was a fair amount of derision throughout the country. Peck was better than usual, but in that same virtuously dull way. There was the suspicion that Peck was being rewarded because the Lincoln-esque lawyer shot a rabid dog and defended an innocent black man accused of raping a white woman. So
it was bloody woke Hollywood.
Yeah, I know, woke Hollywood at it again.
That bloody Oscar bait.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's very easy to forget that not everybody was racist in the 60s.
Yeah.
Or not, at least, obviously I guess you could say that in that systemic sense. But there were people who would have identified as fiercely anti-racist in the 60s, just like there are now. Sometimes you just think everybody in the 60s was just like, oh yeah, racism, that's really cool. But no, not true.
Not true, yeah. But yeah, there obviously we must also remember that Martin Luther King had negative approval ratings, significant negative approval ratings among white Americans.
Even though he wore a suit?
Yeah, I know. Even though he wore a suit and went to church and didn't cheat on his wife, they still hated him. But anyway, so one evening, so we're getting to the trial section now.
Yes,
I think we can all agree that Atticus Finch, being played by Gregory Peck, was an outstanding success. And
yes.
You can't really imagine any other actor filling that role. So well done to Gregory Peck for that. And yeah, he got his Oscar, and he'll always be remembered for that. But anyway, one evening before the trial, Atticus sits in front of the local jail to safeguard Robinson, but a lynch mob arrives. Scout Jim and Dill interrupt the confrontation. Scout, unaware of the mob's purpose, recognises Mr. Cunningham and asks him to say hello to his son, Walter, her classmate. Cunningham becomes embarrassed, and the mob disperses. So yeah, the thing is, I might embarrass myself here, Michael, but I don't remember this from the book.
Wow.
Again, yeah, I don't. Well,
So do you not remember like any of it, like the whole thing?
No, I'm saying it might not be in the book.
Yeah. So sorry, what I was wondering is like when you say you don't remember it, do you mean like specifically the whole like Scout Mr. Cunningham exchange, or do you mean like the whole thing of
the whole thing?
Them like going, yeah, okay, no, that's interesting. I wonder why they would have. So
no, but
like,
I'm saying I may be wrong. It may have been in the book. Yeah, but I just could not remember this scene at all in the book. So I don't know, but yeah, obviously you have the trope of the innocent, the innocence of a child exposing the prejudice.
Yeah. I mean, I like that, yeah, because it's kind of like, I guess it's almost, I also feel like, again, if I were to interpret it, that it's kind of like the difference between being kind of a faceless mob versus being like being identified as an individual. Like the fact that like he was referred to as like Mr. Cunningham made him like realize that he was like, an actual person who is kind of, morally culpable for his actions. I might be making it up, but you know what? I choose to believe that I'm not.
Yes, well, you say that, and that doesn't necessarily contradict what Roger Ebert is going to say here, which I'm going to read a bit from Roger Ebert and what he had to say about that scene. But it's interesting to look at anyway. So this is Ebert's take on that scene. One of the most dramatic scenes shows a lynch mob facing Atticus the night before Robinson's trial. The mob is armed and prepared to break in and hang Robinson. At least it's not a woke mob. But Scout bursts onto the scene, recognises a poor farmer who has been befriended by her father, and shames him and all the other men into leaving. Her speech is a calculated strategic exercise, masked as the innocent words of a child. One shot of her eyes shows she realises exactly what she's doing. That's interesting because the Wikipedia said, she's just doing it by accident, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically,
what a controversy.
Yeah, she's unaware of the mob's purpose, but Ebert says no, that's not the intention of the scene. So, could a child turn away a lynch mob at that time in that place? Isn't it nice to think so? So Ebert's point was that it expresses the liberal pieties of a more innocent time, which the film was released in the early 1960s. He says that would be. That would be very different, and it goes very easy on the realities of small-town Alabama in the 1930s. So he's saying, the mob really wouldn't have been shamed because they didn't think they were bad people doing it. They thought it was justice. What must be done. Basically. So yeah, I think Ebert's point is like, I get what the movie is trying to do, but it is very unrealistic essentially, and basically does not convey the true racism. Or maybe it does convey the true racism, but the just the overwhelming evilness of the and determination, and just we got to lynch black people. That kind of attitude that existed in the 1930s in Alabama compared to 30 years later. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is it's kind of interesting because obviously I don't really know the much about the actual psychology of lynch mobs. Like, I'm not really sure to what extent it was like they were like, yes, we really think we're doing a good thing, or maybe to some extent it was like, if I'm not sure, like if you actually called them out on it, like how would they react? Would they be I don't know, but
I don't think they can't think they're evil. You can't do that and think you're evil.
No, yeah, but I don't know, like I'm not sure. Like it's kind of like to me it's like crazy, and it would be I want to see a film about a lynch mob. I want to see a film that like really just goes into the psychology of being the old lynch mob. But with that said, I am inclined to believe it does seem a bit fantastical. But I mean, it is weird because obviously like you can kind of, I guess like the thing is, obviously Atticus Finch is clearly kind of respected, so I feel like there would be part of them, like obviously they don't want to kill Atticus Finch, so I feel like they're already kind of in a situation where it's like, oh, we don't really want there to be any violence. Like, they already kind of don't want to be there. Not because they think that, killing Tom, is that his name?
Yes, good one.
would be immoral. But just because they know that in order to do that, they would have to be going against what they're explicitly being told not to do by a well-respected member of the community. And with that said, I feel like then having the guy's kids show up and be like, "What are you doing? Why you gotta be like that? Aren't you our friends?" They'd be like, "Oh, you know what? It is a bit much, isn't it?" So,
yeah.
But yeah,
maybe
all
they
I'm
would
saying
just
is,
move him out the way. Like,
yeah, I don't know, yeah. If I were a black person, I would not feel that assured knowing that my life was in the hands of a kid.
So anyway, the trial starts of Tom Robinson. I almost said Tim Robinson. And yeah, it's
Tommy Robinson.
It's inherently dramatic, of course, this trial. Of course it is. You know, it's engineered conflict between two sides who are debating, and of course there are real stakes involved. You know, a massive difference between being found innocent and being found guilty. Therefore, you know, if the trial is done well in any movie, you know, you are inherently like hooked. You know, you gotta love a good trial movie, Michael.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't handle the truth. Of course, that famous line that came in a trial movie. You know, which we're gonna
now imagine she's white.
Now imagine she's white. And of course, the best trial in human history in a movie, I Am Sam, where
yes,
a mentally challenged, what was he called again? The actor?
Sean
Penn.
Crap. Yeah, Sean Penn, that's it.
Sean Penn.
Yeah.
Mentally challenged Sean Penn attempts to keep custody of his 7-year-old kid. Who's smarter than him. Just trial movies are good. Do you think this is a better trial movie than A Time to Kill?
It's a little bit underdeveloped.
We'll get into the trial later, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, A Time to Kill, I guess there's like, the fact there's more of it means there's more dumbness to it. And also, the conclusion in A Time to Kill is dumber. In terms of like the kind of like the verdict and I guess the reaction to the verdict and like everything that leads up to it. Whereas in this case, you're like, okay, yeah, I can buy into it.
One of the best lines in movie history. Now imagine she's white.
And yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell.
And I hope they burn. To be fair, that is quite a good line.
That is actually quite a good line. I know. I like that. When you see that line, you're like, oh, this looks like a good movie. And anyway, so I would say, I guess on balance, it is probably a better trial scene in terms of quality, but that's mostly just because, you know, like with A Time to Kill, the trial is very dumb, and it's also the center of the movie. So
yes, I know. But yeah, obviously, I do love how in this movie To Kill a Mockingbird, the whole town has turned out to watch this trial. You know, you have this grandiose building, you know, with all these spectators, all these legal proceedings, the law being viewed as sacrosanct, all the prestige that is involved in a courtroom, you know, the suits and all of that. And all of this just to get a black man falsely accused of raping a white girl. You know, the fact,
in terms of the actual reality of it.
Not the reality, just that, you know, they go into all this trouble making, you know, this is a cause of law. We have the highest standards, and you know, all the prestige, and just like this black guy. Oh yeah, he definitely didn't rape this white girl, but we're sentencing him anyway.
Yeah, they're getting real excited about it. Like in terms of this is an important trial. Like it's kind of, I mean, it's like people going to. I was gonna say it's like people going to wrestling, like WWE. It's like you already know the result, but you're gonna watch it play out anyway.
Well, I was gonna be like, it's kind of like Starship Troopers, where you have like this massive army, all this technology, and you just use it like to kill bugs, like on a planet like that's like halfway across the galaxy. Yeah, it's like this. Oh, you have all of this like legal set, and you just use it to accuse a poor black man of raping a white girl when obviously he didn't do it. It's that's great. It's there's nothing encapsulates America, or particularly the American South, quite like that. But anyway, we get onto the trial, Michael, and it's alleged that, you know, Tom entered the Yule property at Mayella's request to chop up what, Michael?
A Shobarone. that's what it's called. Is it because of that? A Shibaro.
Shivarobe, like that. You gotta say it like that.
Shivarobe.
Okay, that's a bit racist. Calm down there. And
for some reason when he said it, I was just like, I'm gonna go for it. He wants to see racist, I'll show him racist.
Okay. And that Mayella showed signs of having been beaten around that time. So one of Atticus's arguments is that Tom's left arm is disabled.
Yes.
Due to an accident years ago. Yet the supposed rapist would have had to mostly assault Mayella with his left hand before raping her, because, you know, the bruises on her face. Atticus notes that Mayella's father, Bob Yule, is left-handed, implying that he beat Mayella because he caught her seducing a young black man, which is of course Robinson. Atticus I think could make this a bit clearer, I think.
Yeah. See, this is also, you mentioned it like as the kind of the quality of it as like a trial scene, and I was literally thinking to myself, like, one of my big problems is that like the way it plays out isn't very kind of like triumphant. Like there's not like it's not as if like you really feel the victory when he's like, you're just like kind of, oh, okay, yeah, I guess it's, yeah, it probably wasn't him then.
Yes.
He doesn't really sell it.
No, you're right, he doesn't sell it. And the thing is, I mean, look, I get what they're trying to do, not like state it, just kind of say it, like be underhand about it. Well, not underhand, just not go over the top with it, because that's better, I guess, movie making if you do that. But the thing is, lawyers, aren't they meant to like spell everything out very clearly?
Yeah.
Like the wiki says, Atticus implies that, Bob, you'll beat Mayella. But don't imply it.
Yeah.
Don't imply Atticus, for fuck's sake. Actually try to nail him. Make him squirm. That's what I'd do. He just lets him off so easily. He's like, oh, so you're left-handed, are you? And then he tells him, and then he can sit back down. Just fucking go at him and be like, well, you know what? So Mayella had bruises down the right-hand side of her face. You're left-handed. And
yes, it wasn't very satisfying, like the way he kind of like his, because it's like literally he's caught them out like in a pretty substantial kind. And to be fair, it's also, I think it's very convenient he was even able to do so. Like it's very convenient this guy, his left side of his body literally doesn't.
No,
work,
but I was going to point that out again. It's one of those things like it's fine if it's convenient. It's fine because it's meant to show just how racist this society is. If like literally you've got a very obvious case of it could not be this guy. But obviously, he still gets found guilty, even after all of that. I remember in the book, what happens is Scout, during the recess, while the jury's out, I think that's what it's called, I don't know. So Scout and Jem actually go down to talk to Atticus on the courtroom floor, which obviously doesn't happen in the movie. And Scout says, or is it Jem? I can't remember. One of them's like, oh, there's no way that he's going to be found guilty after this. Like, the evidence was so obvious. It's so obvious Tom Robinson's innocent. Their naivety on full display, and Atticus is like that. Well, Atticus is just like, we'll see, kids. We'll see. Run along now. I don't know, just that kind of thing where he's doesn't really say much. But yeah, so obviously it's meant to show just how ridiculous this situation is that this guy is still sentenced, even though he doesn't. There's no way he could have done what he's being accused of, and of course we do have a culprit, which is the girl's father, which would of course completely make sense, and it's very obvious to anyone. But yeah, we get on to the next part of the trial. So Tom, he testifies that he had previously assisted Mayella with various chores at her request because, quote, he felt sorry for her. Words that incite a swift negative reaction from the prosecutor. So Atticus seems to know that he messed up as well, and he references it in his closing speech as well, does Atticus. And maybe that's the final blow for Tom. Like, you cannot think that a white person, you cannot feel sorry for a white person. You are lower than them. You cannot do that. That's the thing that really makes him guilty. I think that's a good interpretation of that, Michael, right?
Yeah. I think that would make sense because it's obviously like they're not actually angry at him because they think that he's wrong, or because they think he's guilty. They're angry at him because of an incidental thing he said, and that's why they decide to convict him. And I would agree with that.
Yeah, maybe
interpretation.
Maybe he would have gone away with it. Maybe I say gotten away with it.
Gotten away with not.
Maybe he
not
would
really think somebody.
Yeah, maybe he would have been found innocent if he didn't say that.
Actually, look, you're not found. It's important to bear in mind that a court doesn't find you innocent; they find you not guilty.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Because the standard isn't that you have to prove their innocence; you just have to show the opposition or the prosecution has failed to prove their guilt.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, in his closing argument, Atticus asks the all-white male jury to cast aside their prejudices, well, good luck, pal, and focus on Tom's obvious innocence. The thing is, this closing speech, I guess it's a very famous closing speech.
Yeah, well, in Do Your Duty, it's
do your duty. And
in the name of God.
Yes, do your duty. Not as good as...
Now imagine she's white.
Not as good as that one. Still pretty damn good. But yeah, obviously, the thing is, the speech, obviously, it's very well done. It's like in one shot. There's a couple of cuts here and there. But it goes on for a while. And I'm just like, whatever happened to keeping it short and sweet, Atticus? Like, it seems quite ridiculous. If I was on the jury, I would be like, right, you're just doing this for the cameras, That's what I think if I was on the jury. But yeah, it does seem like awful showy. It seems awful showy, that. We don't like that around these parts.
Oh, this highfalutin lawyer thinks that he's got something to say.
Yeah.
Well, I got my chickens to get back to.
Were these fancy schmancy words, like duty? No, he does go on for a while, and he does use the full extent of his vocabulary, does Atticus. But yeah, I just think it could have been a lot more precise, And of course the ending is good and iconic, but yeah, I just don't think Atticus is that good a lawyer. I'm just going to say
yes.
yes, he probably wouldn't. Tom Robinson probably might have, not have won this anyway. But having Atticus as a lawyer certainly didn't help.
Yeah, I think he should have had Matthew McConaughey as his lawyer, and Samuel L. Jackson should have had Atticus as his lawyer.
I tell you what, put Matthew McConaughey in Atticus's place. Tom Robinson's walking out of there with a fucking. He's not just being found not guilty. He's getting a payment for slandering his character.
Yeah. In that version, Tom Robinson rapes her in a courthouse in front of everybody, and then claims insanity and gets off. And then everybody cheers.
Yeah. He's like, oh, that was another great part of the movie. He did, fucking Samuel L. Jackson. It's like, this man is insane. He's free to go out into society. He's just killed someone, and then not locked away in a fucking psychiatric institution. There we go. Yeah, another great. Yeah, is this a To Kill a Mockingbird review or a Time to Kill review?
I know. It's just really hard not to constantly be thinking about it.
I know, right? So Tom is of course found guilty. Wow, what a surprise! As Atticus exits the courtroom, the black spectators in the balcony rise to show their respect and appreciation. Okay, this is the hero worship of Atticus, which goes too far. Atticus, he's a good guy, but come on, this is ridiculous. And Ebert again criticized the film also for focusing less on the blacks, denouncing the cliche of the honest white man standing for a helpless black. And that's true. Obviously, the novel is from Scout's perspective, but yeah, you don't really have a lot of focus on the black people who are actually at the center of the who have to deal with this racism every day of their lives. And yeah, obviously you have a little white girl who wouldn't really hang around with black people too much in 1930s Alabama. But obviously, interesting that they hardly how many lines do black people get in this movie, Michael?
Not many. Yeah, they're very I mean, that's kind of obviously I agree with you about it being from Scout's perspective, and that sort of means there's bigger things happening in the background, which obviously we're not exactly privy. It kind of means because we see it from that perspective, it means it's all just stuff happening in the background. But it does mean that this actual story, which I guess you should say, considering it's in relevance to a very significant time in American history, should maybe get more focus. I will say actually just one real quick thing on the subject of the hero worship. I was thinking it was a bit weird they all stood up. I was, however, wondering, and I don't know if you know whether or not this isn't true, that it was customary in courts, because I know they say all rise, and I thought that they rose as everybody came in and they rose as everyone came out. And my thought was, and this was my understanding of it, which makes it slightly more kind of excusable, is that what should have happened is that everybody rose and then the judge and the lawyers left, and then they could all sit down, as happens. But because all the white people had decided that they didn't like Atticus Finch anymore. I don't think that's the case. Yeah, I'm not sure. Because that was because I was thinking to myself this is a bit. Look,
I mean, I've never been inside an American courtroom, but I've seen a lot of TV and media that's about American courtrooms, and I've never.
Yeah, and they don't really do that, do it? Yeah, so okay, never mind. That was my one thing that I was would make it slightly less weird. Than them just okay.
And definitely, it's a case of it's meant to be portrayed. Definitely, I think it's a sign of respect for Atticus from the black spectators.
Which is definitely. I mean, it's obviously kind of it's one of those things where that sort of makes sense.
Do you know what it is? And this is what I'm gonna get onto.
You're gonna say it's the white savior.
Yes, it is a textbook example of the white savior trope. So I'll read out the description of that trope. A white central character rescues non-white, often less prominent character from unfortunate circumstances. Yes. Well, he tries to rescue him, obviously. And maybe, he's not a white savior because he doesn't save anyone, maybe. But anyway, this reoccurs in an array of genres in American cinema, wherein a white protagonist is portrayed as a messianic figure who often learns something about themselves in the course of rescuing non-white characters from their plight. And that doesn't happen to Atticus. He doesn't learn about himself because Atticus is
already perfect.
He's already perfect. Literally, that's what I was about to say. So he doesn't need to learn anything about himself because he's already perfect. But anyway, so the white savior is often portrayed as a man who is out of place within his own society.
Yep.
Yep, until he assumes the burden of racial leadership to rescue non-white minorities and foreigners from their suffering.
Yeah. I mean, it is his job, obviously. The only thing I was just going to say is that, like, the only thing against that is that it obviously is his job. So, like, it's not quite like he literally goes out of his way. But, you know, I'll still accept that that's an accurate description.
Yeah, again, it is his job. But you can imagine he's the only one who would actually care about, you know, making sure he's not guilty. But yeah, I mean, this is a man in Atticus who could exist 30 years later or more and still be ahead of his time. You know,
yeah.
The fact that someone like this could grow up in 1930s Alabama just doesn't seem to be true. To be honest, it doesn't seem like that could be something that could happen. Well, not even grow up in 1930s. Grow up in like the 1900s, like the 1890s. Yeah. The fucking, how old is he? Like maybe 40. Like he would have grown up in like the 1890s in Alabama. You know, and that's you're gonna. It's hard to imagine someone like that being like he is in this movie. It's very hard. Yeah. So Atticus. Of course, he isn't a real person, and of course, Harper Lee didn't base him off anyone, I don't think. But he is Jesus, basically, in this movie. Like, you know, they say a messianic figure he is. I mean, he literally, like, turns the other cheek, kind of, when...
with the spit.
Yeah, Bobby Yule spits on his face, and he just wipes it off instead of hitting him. You know, and it is clear from this quote as well that Harper Lee did like the white savior trope as well. So she said this about Peck. The years told me this secret, or his secret, rather. When he played Atticus Finch, he had played himself. And time has told all of us something more. When he played himself, he touched the world. And yeah, I think that's, you know, the case of what Harper Lee thinks about this role that of Atticus Finch and how Gregory Peck played him. It's like, oh yeah, this guy really was like, you know, she didn't say the words, but it's clear she thinks of himself as like as maybe not a savior, but like a healer, and therefore a white healer. You know, he's meant to be a perfect person because he's meant to be the perfect role model for Scout and Jem. But yeah, this movie really does lean on that white savior trope a lot, and that is something again we have to comment on it, Michael. You know,
yes, we have to acknowledge it,
and it's fair to do that, right?
No, yeah, and I would agree. I mean, the thing is, obviously, it's definitely, it's not like we're not saying cancel Atticus Finch, but yeah, basically, it definitely is true, and it's. You know, I mean, obviously, it's kind of like, it feels a bit weird to say, like, it's kind of, I guess, you know, I'm going to use the word problematic, which I know is like a kind of funny term. But yeah, like, it's because, you know, obviously, this isn't like the kind of 1990s racial relation films or like, you know, the kind of recent racial relation films where it's just like, oh my God, they're still doing this. In a sense, it's almost like, it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, because it was the 1960s, so maybe this is the best you could ever get. But yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, and obviously, you know, I know I've already said this, but the main thing I think, or the main way it counts against it, I guess, is as far as a narrative is concerned. Because the funny thing is, what they could have done is do like the white man learns a lesson thing, and that's also a trope. But like, at least it's a trope that's more kind of narratively interesting. So obviously, you know, if you saw that in a modern movie where, like, I don't know, like a racist white guy learns a lesson, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's a bit, you know, overdone. But like in this film, where you have basically just a guy who's like perfect and like totally above the racism of the society he lives in, seeing him just continue to fight against racism is just a bit, you know, one-dimensional.
Well, yeah, again, it is one-dimensional, and that's a criticism of the movie. But again, it is kind of aimed at like kids, so you know, you do have to say that. But yeah, by the way, Atticus was named the AFI's American Film Institute's greatest movie hero of the 20th century.
Oh wow!
I mean, yeah,
20th century. That's a long time.
Yeah, again, it's like this is the thing. It's a movie that is a lot. You know, it focuses, of course, a ton on, you know, racism and prejudice and tolerance, and, you know, in 1930s Alabama, everything revolves around Atticus really in this movie, in terms of like the kids learning lessons. It's all from Atticus, and whether you know, him teaching them lessons or obviously, you know, him being a lawyer at the trial. But yeah, obviously, Michael, we'll talk about the fact, you know, this movie, you know, and again, not really criticism, because again, it is aimed at kind of kids, but you said one-dimensional, and I agreed, and certainly when we discussed the racism in this movie, again, it's like, it's, you know, it's of its time, and it can only do so much, but obviously Jem and Scout learned that, you know, nobody's born a racist, you know, it's basically, you have to learn it. That is the central point, I guess. Like, the racism just looks truly stupid to children, you know, who've not been infected with this disease. It just looks like crazy to them when they see that Tom Robinson is found guilty, there's no way he's guilty, but somehow they find him guilty. It's just like so confusing to them and shows, how, again, racism, they're infected with it, and for society is, and just the innocence and the truth telling of the kids, shine the light on just how horrific this situation is. But at the end of the day, it is very, simplistic, like good versus bad understanding of racism, and it is a child's understanding of racism, isn't it? And that's why I think Dylan would really like this movie. I think this is the reason why this movie is beloved by liberals. I think this is a very liberal movie. They're not racist, since they're not like Bob Yule, are they? They're so far from Bob Yule, and they support Atticus.
Yeah,
they love Atticus. He's the hero. I do think like this movie is a pillar of like, I guess, liberal movies alongside. Oh, do you remember which is the other movie I think is the most liberal movie of all time?
Is it to do with racial relations as well?
Kind of. It's to do with the friendship between a black man and a white man.
Well, I'm thinking it would be Green Book.
It's the Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah, okay, Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But yeah, that's the thing. That movie, again, I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, it kind of just forgets racism, that movie. And this one, it doesn't forget racism, but it's a case of, we got some really bad people, these racist Southerners, and you got the good person in Atticus Finch who isn't racist. Again, it's really not that deep at all. It's very simple.
Yeah. This film, it's not for people who would want to, let's say, challenge their own racial prejudices.
Yeah, and
it's basically a movie that says, either you are in a broad group that can just be painted as racist, or you're in a broad group that can be painted as like progressive and liberal.
Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously it's a classic movie, but again, it's not that stimulating. It's not that deep. It's very simple, and you could, again, I come back to it's a movie, or the book was meant for children, for the children, and again the movie was released in the 1960s, and I guess this was 2 years before the civil rights bill got passed, those amendments in 1964, MLK's March on Washington, all of that. Like, this movie was released before then, so America was still very backwards. But just looking back on it, it's just very simplistic, and it's that is unfortunate when it comes to the race relations. But again, that's all they could probably do. So after the pageant, there's a fucking pageant, isn't there? Like we fast forward 3 months and there's a pageant. Scout's dressed as a ham, which I remember from the book.
Well, this would probably be a good moment to mention the weird pacing thing that makes you realise this is a novel.
Oh, I was going to mention this. Yes. So Scout can't find her dress and shoes, and she walks home while wearing a large hard-shelled ham costume. While cutting through the woods, Scout and Jem are attacked, and Scout's protected by her costume, but then this attacker knocks Jem unconscious, but is himself attacked and killed by a second man unseen by Scouts. And of course it's Boo Radley. And I think before Scout and Jem go to this, pageant, Scout mentions Boo Radley, and when she does, I'm like, oh yeah, Boo Radley. Remember him from earlier on in the movie, Boo Radley. Well, he's back. It just rears its head again, the Boo Radley stuff. And you forget about it for like an hour. And this is, again, like you said, Michael, this is the major difference, I think, between the book and the novel, and how you can tell it's based on a book, because this stuff, like you said, the book doesn't have to follow like a narrative, a more structured narrative pacing like a movie has to. I remember, by the way, in the book, like, Boo Radley is mentioned throughout, and this doesn't seem like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Boo Radley comes back. He's there throughout the book, but you can't really do that in the movie. This is what you have to have, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, also it's kind of like something. The other classic example of this is the Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, where like they basically have the movie take so long ending, and the basic reason for that, I think, could be summarized with the fact that in a book you don't need to have the same pacing as a film, so you can have like the climactic moment, and then you can just have a few more whole chapters just wrapping things up, because it's a book, it's something people read over like several days. So if it whereas obviously conversely, if you're watching a film that you watch in the space of like 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, once you get to the climactic big moment, you don't expect it to just continue and just be like, oh, it's just keeping going. And like that definitely does kind of happen here, where it's like you get obviously it's almost like this weird kind of epilogue thing where you just got this, and obviously it's still relevant and it's not necessarily bad, but it just makes you realize that it's based on the film. But yeah, and as for him coming out of nowhere, I also agree that does feel like it would be the consequence. Of course, in the book, you can just have like, only takes a sentence to have like a throwaway line to be like, oh, and I wondered what Boo Radley was up to. Whereas like in a film, obviously, again, you got to have more of that kind of focus on the specific happenings of the plot, which means it's kind of like you just have Boo Radley being a focus, and then he just goes away and then just comes back. So yeah, you do feel that adaptation.
Yes,
aspect.
yes, indeed, yeah. This is very obvious here, yes. But anyway, Scout tells Sheriff Tate and her father what happened, then notices a strange man behind Jem's bedroom door. Atticus introduces Scout to Arthur Radley, whom she knows as Boo. It was Boo who rescued Jem and Scout, overpowering Bob Ewell and carrying Jem home. But yeah, so anyway, Scout, I think, should be more scared when she sees this weird man standing behind the door.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too. Like, it is quite a creepy look.
Yeah, this weird man in the dark standing behind the door, and Scout's just like, oh yeah, it was him. And just, you won't be frightened by that. But anyway, Sheriff Tate realizes the truth. Boo killed Ewell defending the children. His official report will state that Ewell died falling on his knife. He refuses to drag the painfully shy, introverted Boo into the spotlight for his heroism, insisting it would be a sin. Oh, well, thank God Boo is white, eh? Thank God.
Yeah, that is funny, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Scout escorts Boo home. She draws a startlingly precocious analogy. I like that from Wikipedia.
Startlingly precocious.
Yeah, analogy, but comparing the unwelcome public attention that would have been heaped on Boo with the killing of a mockingbird that does nothing but sing. So mockingbirds sing and mentally challenged people stab others.
Yes,
that's just
it's just doing what they're doing.
That's just what they do.
It's a good thing she didn't make that analogy about like a black man raping someone. It's like, it's just what they do.
Yeah, Daddy. No, she calls him Atticus. Yeah, Atticus. I've been thinking, that mockingbird singing's kind of like that black man raping.
It's just how it is.
Yeah, and Atticus is like, I think you've taken the wrong message from this incident, Scout. I don't know what I've been teaching you, but But anyway, that would be a funny alternate ending. But yeah,
yes,
obviously, the metaphor is very obvious. I don't think Scout needed to say it so much. But again, it's for kids or whatever. And yeah, again, you just Boo Radley, he's this evil guy. No, he saves Jem in the end. So there you go, Michael. You just don't know a lot about people until you really get to know them.
Until you walk in their shoes.
Exactly. So let's conclude. You go first.
Okay, right. So this film, the main strengths of it, I guess, are really, I mean, it's sort of limited in a way to the to that kind of like charming aspect, and I guess also that kind of day in the life aspect. And obviously it's not a day, it's several years, but that kind of just like you're just seeing this kid going along doing their thing. And I guess the charm aspect comes from the fact that you like the characters. The characters are obviously nice and friendly, and I guess at a base level you can kind of give the film credit, considering, I guess when it came out, for, being anti-racist, but obviously, from nowadays that's pretty pedestrian. Of course, the actual kind of message on the film regarding racism is really nothing to get excited about. It's not any kind of meaningful analysis about the reality of racism. And similarly, the character development, basically is a bit boring going through the film and realizing none of the characters change. All the characters who are good at the beginning are still good. All the characters who are evil at the beginning are still evil. Like nothing, even like just kind of emotionally or anything like that. There's just no kind of major change in character for any of the characters, I guess, apart from the ones that end up dead.
I thought that might be the case with Jem, by the way. I thought he would but they don't really do anything with that.
Yeah. Because it's kind of weird because you've got like kids, and you would like think it would be obvious that the kids would kind of learn some kind of big lesson. I guess they learn to not bully retards, but like they don't really, there's nothing like kind of major that they learn or anything like that. And obviously part of what could have been, considering the film obviously deals with racial relations, is maybe having a character whose relationship to kind of, race and racial prejudice is in some way a developing thing throughout the film.
Yeah, like
and,
Dale's a massive racist.
Yeah, or I was even thinking like it could be like Jem, maybe like he's kind of interested in like the community and he ends up kind of meeting some racists. And like maybe it could be like, and Atticus is kind of like trying to be a good influence, leading Jem away from like the racists. But that was just a thought I was having, like, because it doesn't have I might be completely confused. But doesn't he have a scene where he's like pretending to be a cowboy. Maybe I'm making it up, but like if he did, let's assume he did. If he didn't, then like you can have a scene where like some guy is like, oh, you won't be a cowboy. We had some mighty fine cowboys after the Civil War who helped keep the African Americans. They say African Americans help keep the African Americans in check. And then Finch would be like, don't talk to that guy. Or whatever. Anyway, sorry, yeah. What did I say?
You said Finch.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. But yeah, basically, the point is, essentially, it would be nice if there was a character who developed in some way, particularly maybe to do with racism, because that's what the film's about. But that doesn't happen. I think I'm gonna have to give the film a low 7. And yeah, because I don't think I can give it really anything higher than that when, in terms of like narrative and character, it is pretty static.
Yeah,
so there you go.
I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's a 6.5. That's the thing. It's like, obviously, it's got the charm, of the kids running about, playing, in the summertime, getting into all this mischief, up to no good and all that. And that's captured well in the film. But yeah, the central bit of the film is just rather disappointing, really. Gregory Peck is great, of course, but the trial just isn't that good. It could be a lot better, I think. Honestly, like A Time to Kill was more entertaining, especially when Samuel L. Jackson shot them. Those people who raped his daughter. But yeah, it's just limited in its understanding of like racism, I guess, or in how it displays racism, I guess is a better way to say it. And yeah, obviously, the message of, tolerance, understanding, etc. is appreciated, but like, again, it's very basic stuff. But again, it's for kids, so, I'm not saying it's a bad movie or it should have done this better. Harper Lee clearly was writing something for kids, and therefore, you can see in this movie, it's very obvious, the metaphors and so on. But yeah, it just doesn't make a great movie. And, we don't judge things on whether they're classics, Michael. We're not afraid.
Yes.
We're not afraid to rank a movie which is a classic, as a middling movie like we have done. And yeah, again, I say what I said at the beginning. The fact that this movie is attached to one of the most famous books in, the Western world, To Kill a Mockingbird, is what really makes it a classic. Because if that wasn't the case, it would still be a movie that's remembered fondly, but that it really elevates it to another level because of the book it's based on. So Michael, time to see how we did with our Thor: Love and Thunder Rotten Tomatoes predictions.
Yes. Have we done Minions, by the way? Or do we wait?
Sorry,
have we, do we do the receipts on that?
Yeah,
I've actually forgotten that. Okay, yeah, sorry.
No, you've forgotten, because we literally did the receipts last week, yeah.
Yes, okay, never mind.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. But anyway, so you guessed for Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yes.
It would be 94 on Rotten Tomatoes. I guessed it would be 88. The correct answer is 68.
Yes. See, I'd heard. So some of like the anti-cape shit people I've seen on the Twitters have been like, oh, this is a bad movie. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is not gonna end well. This
generally might be the first sign of the Marvel Cinematic Universe really running out of gas.
Yes.
Because the thing is, Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, the first Doctor Strange movie wasn't incredible, but, the last Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok, was, it was a fun movie, and it reinvigorated the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And, of course, Taika Waititi's back. It's a similar kind of movie, apparently, to that one. Of course, I haven't seen it. But, yeah, the fact that it's just fallen flat and only got 68% might be a case of, the Marvel Cinematic Universe might be in trouble. Whisper it, but, it might be struggling. We'll see what Black Panther does later on this year. But yeah, only 68 on Rotten Tomatoes, which means that you, Michael, get 26 added to your score, because, you were 26 away, and I get 20 added to my score.
So are we even Steven Seagal now?
Yes, because you are on a score of 82 now, and I am on a score of 82, which means we are tied, of course.
Now it all comes down to the score for To Kill a Mockingbird 2.
Yes, but it's incredible. So we have guessed how many movies so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... And we obviously our Oscars thing as well, which we guess which counts towards it. So yeah, and we're tied literally.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And also this isn't like Jeopardy where we like decide the thing. Like we guess at the same time.
Yeah.
So
we guess at the same time. Absolutely.
We just happened to literally we both picked random numbers between 100 and 1 and 100, and they happen to be the exact amount apart.
Okay, yeah.
So it was on us tying.
That is definitely the case. So anyway, Michael, what are we reviewing next week?
Well, next week...
No, sorry, I've changed it.
Have you?
Next week,
okay.
we're reviewing Malcolm X.
Oh, that's... Well, it's barely even a change, to be fair.
Yes, and because Nope is coming out next week.
Okay, now I would like to know, by the way, for some reason, this is probably an example of where you've moved something around.
Yes, I have.
Because
That's why
I have...
jumped in.
No, sorry, no, but what I mean is that what I have next to Malcolm X is Black Adam. Was that the actual reason?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was thinking, for example, because obviously that's a DC film, isn't it?
Yeah, starring The Rock, yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking to myself, like, oh, what probably happened is we had like a DC film there, and then Luke moved it around, and I just forgot to move around the kind of reference.
I thought I was being funny putting Malcolm X next to Black Adam, but Black Adam's being released in October now. So yeah, it's been moved.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Malcolm X next week. Join us for that. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and I've learnt my lesson. I'll never kill another mockingbird again. Goodbye.
Oh, another one. Goodbye.